Hey, what's up, mortals? It's Miggy Sawdust here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 6 of What If Deku Was Trained by Aizawa. Just wanted to greet you all by just saying sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. Let's get started. Once school had come to a close, Izuku didn't know how, but he found himself walking home with Ochako Uraraka, Denki Kaminari, and the blue-haired boy that told the class to drop the topic of conversation that had woken him up. "I can't believe you're quirkless, Deku," the brunette said while punching the air above her head. "Yeah, dude, that's really cool." He simply nodded, not shifting his tired gaze in front of him. "Thanks, guys," was all the boy said, which caused an awkward silence to befall the group. The blue-haired boy who had been eyeing Izuku from the side spoke up after a few seconds of silence. "Midoriya, why does Bakugo call you Deku?" Izuku turned his gaze and eyed the blue-haired boy, meeting his. Quickly looking away, the blue-haired boy cleared his throat, while Uraraka and Kaminari stayed silent. "Oh, Kachan? He calls me Deku because it means useless. I don't really mind it, though." With that, the silence came to a close, and Uraraka and Kaminari began to speak up again. "Really? But it sounds like the Japanese word that means, I can do it. I think it sounds really cool." Uraraka spoke with so much enthusiasm, it almost made Izuku blush. Kaminari, on the other hand, also wanted to chime in. He didn't know any of the special meanings for specific words, and was quite frankly looking for something to add in. "Oh yeah, like Nugatory." Kaminari chimed in, causing the group to go silent. Ochako looked somewhat confused, but Izuku and the blue-haired boy looked really confused. "You mean Nugatory as in another word for useless?" the blue-haired boy said, causing Kaminari's face to go pale. Faking a few coughs, Kaminari tried to change the subject at hand. Well, what is your name, anyway?" Kaminari choked on his words, but he managed to get it out, eventually. The change of topic almost didn't work, but the blue-haired boy promptly face-palmed. Where are my manners? I am Tenya Ida. It's a pleasure to meet you." "Nice to meet you, Ida." Izuku's words were short and abrupt, but they conveyed his emotions to a certain extent. "Yeah, nice to meet you, Ida," Uraraka chimed in. Shortly after, the group continued walking with small talk. Uraraka, who hadn't quite finished talking yet, forgot what she wanted to say next. The next day, Class 1A was patiently waiting in their classroom, waiting for the heroics teacher to arrive. They hadn't had the subject the previous day, so the whole class was curious to see who their teacher would be. Naturally, this led to some small talk among the students. "I wonder if All Might will be our teacher," Jiro, a girl with earphone jacks for earlobes, said with curiosity in her voice. Mina looked at her confused. "That would be really cool and all, but he isn't a teacher at UA. Asui chimed in along with comments from a few other students.
"Didn't you hear? There are rumors that All Might will be teaching at UA this year, Ribbit."
The toad-like girl put an index finger on her chin and tilted her head slightly to the side. Mina raised an eyebrow and was about to talk when suddenly the door to the classroom got knocked out of its hinges and was flown across the classroom with a massive tall man with blonde hair entering the room behind it. "I am here, coming through the door like a normal person!" All Might, the #1 hero, exclaimed with a smile on his face. Most of the students were frightened from the sudden noise, but cheered out with joy nevertheless. "But you came in after knocking the door across the room," Momo said softly under her breath after settling down due to the surprise of All Might. All Might, in the meantime, took his place at the podium in the front of the classroom while the students continued to cheer. Yes. Thank you. Now settle down, students, settle down." All Might stood tall and proud, gazing down at his students, who began to settle down, as he had instructed. Midoriya in particular caught his eye. The boy looked confused and was sitting in his seat, rubbing his eyes. He had, of course, been taking a nap. "All right, students, we don't have much time to waste. I am your foundational heroics teacher, and today we will be doing a trial of battle." All Might spoke in his usual, upheld and joy-inducing tone. Reaching down to the podium, All Might pressed a button, and the wall to the left of the students slid down, revealing a series of boxes with numbers related to their seating. "These are your hero costumes. Get changed into them and head to Practice City B." The students all nodded. Each one was excited to wear their costumes for the first time. 10 minutes later in the boys' changing rooms, each student was just about to finish getting ready. Some of the costume choices intrigued the various boys.
Wow, Bakugo, your costume is hella complex,
Kirishima said, causing Bakugo to just scoff and look away. Realizing that he wasn't going to get a response, Kirishima directed his attention to Izuku, who was just about done getting ready. His costume looked awfully close to Aizawa's. He was clad in black clothing with white capture gear around his neck. Quite frankly, the only difference in between the boy's costume and his mentor's was the glaring fact that he didn't need goggles, since he didn't have an eye-related quirk.
Wow, Midoriya. You seem to have a very similar costume to Aizawa-sensei.
The red-headed boy struggled to speak. He had his doubts that Izuku and Aizawa had some connection, but Izuku's costume really didn't do anything to indicate otherwise. Oh yeah, of course! I've looked up to Aizawa-sensei since I was a kid. The fact that he could become such a successful hero, despite only having an eye-related quirk, really resonated with me. Izuku's tired expression basically disappeared, a smile taking its place. To be honest, I had no idea who Aizawa-sensei was until he introduced himself, Kaminari said, scratching the back of his head awkwardly. Many of the other students nodded and voiced their agreements, but Izuku didn't falter. That's because he's an underground hero. He saves the lives of people in the shadows while staying out of the public eye. Izuku was just about ready to go on a tangent on the feats of his mentor, but Ida clearing his throat caused him to quiet down. I apologize for the interruption, Midoriya, but we must finish up and get to the training field, or else All Might will gain a bad impression of us all. The blue-haired boy stood clad in armor resembling that of a knight in shining armor, ready to charge in the battle to save his maiden. His words resonated with his classmates that had flashbacks to the events of the previous day. Moments later, the whole class of 1A was inside the test city that was Field B. They all stood in front of All Might in a crescent moon shape. All right, students, it's time I explained your first battle trial. Today's trial will be a heroes versus villains battle. The heroes will be invading, and the villains will be defending. All the teams will be picked at random from these 2 boxes in front of me. All Might gestured to the 2 boxes in front of him. You villains will have 10 minutes to place the bomb on any floor of the building. Now, with everything explained, we shall pick the teams. All Might promptly reached into the boxes and pulled out 2 pieces of paper from each. Team A will be Izuku Midoriya and Denki Kaminari versus Team B, which will be Ojiro Masharo and Tenya Ida. This video was sponsored by Honey. Honey is a free browser add-on available on Google, Opera, Firefox, Safari. If it's a browser, it has Honey. Honey automatically saves you money when you check out on sites like Amazon, Papa John's, and Kohl's. Wherever you shop, it's a good chance that Honey can save you money. All you have to do when you're checking out at these big sites is click that little orange button, and it'll scan the entire internet and find discount codes for you. It takes 2 clicks to install Honey. Now, anytime you check out, Honey will scan the whole internet and find coupon codes for you. If there's a coupon code, they will find it. And if there's not a coupon code, you can rest assured that you are getting the best price possible. If you install Honey right now, you can save so much money on your online shopping, doing nothing. There's no reason not to install Honey. It takes 2 clicks. 10 million people use it, 100,000 5-star reviews. Unless you hate money, you should install Honey. Use the link in the description to start saving money right now. After announcing the rest of the students' teams, all the students bar Izuku and Ida's teams all entered a room with a huge screen, displaying hidden cameras in the building. Team A stood outside of the 5-story building that they would be breaching, while Team B prepared themselves. So, what's our game plan, Midoriya? Kaminari asked while Izuku quietly thought out a strategy, recalling the memories of how their opponents had used their quirks in the examination just a day prior. From observing them yesterday, I'm guessing they'll more than likely split up. One of them, probably the one that's likely to just be able to slow us down, will likely try to either meet us on the first floor or from a vantage point. Izuku furrowed his eyebrows briefly while Kaminari listened closely. Ida's the only one out of the 2 of them that I feel we both might have trouble fighting on our own. Since you have a lightning quirk, you could get him from a distance or whenever you get close. Izuku began to mumble in his signature way, which slowly began to creep Kaminari out as he slowly formulated a plan. Midoriya? I can't make out what you're saying. Kaminari's words brought Midoriya out of his mumbling fit and brought him back to his senses. I have an idea, Midoriya said softly before turning to face Kaminari. Not so far away on the 5th floor of the building, Ida and Ojiro had just finished formulating their own plan. Ida was to stay in the bomb room, and Ojiro, who was told to retreat if he thought something was amiss, was on his way to the bottommost floor of the building. Ida spoke through the earpiece that their team had. Good luck, my nefarious comrade! Remember, those pesky heroes might come up with a sneaky plan! Ojiro, who wasn't taking this nearly as serious as Ida, struggled to reply. Yeah. Ojiro spoke in an unsure and almost speechless voice. He and Ida had decided that it was better to check out the weaker link of the hero team, which they assumed to be Midoriya first. Further down the building, hiding in the blind spot next to the stairwell, was Midoriya with Kaminari nowhere in sight. The boy had his ear against the wall, and despite how faint they were, Midoriya could hear light footsteps above him. Moments later, the footsteps got louder and louder, with Izuku gripping onto his capture gear. Just need to catch him off guard, Izuku, he thought to himself, while the footsteps got louder and louder, now echoing into the hallway. Moments later, Ojiro walked out into the hallway, and as Izuku had predicted, he was in Ojiro's blind spot. As fast as he could, Izuku leaped out from behind the wall, with his knee aimed at Ojiro's upper back, with his capture gear ready to restrain him. Got you! Izuku called out, as he was about to make contact with Ojiro. However, instead of making contact, Izuku felt a sudden pain in his side before suddenly being knocked across the hallway and into a wall. I might not have a flashy quirk, but what I do have is a giant tail, Ojiro said in a monotone voice, while getting into a fighting position, with his tail swaying behind him. Izuku, who had coughed out some of his saliva, stood up wiping his chin with his sleeve. Fair, Izuku said, going completely quiet after the word left his mouth. Getting into a fighting pose of his own with one of his hands gripping tightly on the capture gear, Izuku's gaze met Ojiro's. And frankly, Izuku's gaze sent shivers down Ojiro's spine. A brief memory of their homeroom teacher flashing in his mind. Ojiro felt uneasy, forcing himself to break eye contact with Izuku, whose sudden silence and gaze reminded him a lot of their homeroom teacher. It was a gaze that voiced what Izuku was thinking, so much so that he could practically hear the words as if they were coming from their teacher. You think you've got an advantage, but you're going to lose. That's what Izuku's eyes told him, and frankly, it put Ojiro on the back foot. Izuku was practically oozing confidence, and the fact that shortly after Ojiro broke eye contact, Izuku made eye contact again, told the tailed boy that Izuku, who had despite having been knocked away, was in control. This caused a growing lack of confidence from Ojiro, which caused him not to move, promptly starting a standstill in between both he and Izuku. In the control room, the whole class focused on Izuku and Ojiro. Why are they standing still? Kirishima asked, voicing most of the students' thoughts. It looks like they're having a stare-off, Momo responded. She was reading the situation closely, but still couldn't think of a proper answer. Other than Ojiro's visible nervousness, she couldn't make out what was going on. Well, we'll just have to wait and see, All Might said, his tone notifying the students that even he was truly unaware of what was going to happen next. A second later, Izuku took a step forward, and Ojiro took a step back. This caused Izuku to furrow his eyebrows a bit, but shortly after his face returned to its intimidating glare. Taking another step forward, Izuku prompted Ojiro to take another step back, and another, until Ojiro was just about to be out of the way of the stairwell. What's wrong? Izuku's words were held high with confidence, but his tone intimidated Ojiro more. These words left Ojiro speechless, and his silence caused Izuku to smirk, and suddenly his gaze changed to that of his normal, tired expression. Letting go of his capture gear, Izuku practically dropped his guard completely with a smile that was, in that moment, the only thing that didn't resemble Aizawa. Got you! Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope you enjoyed that. Before you leave, we'd just like to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right here below in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below as well. That's all for today, so goodbye and have a divine day.